It is hard to get past just how bad the most recent red tide bloom was. It lasted more than a year. It destroyed our wildlife up and down the coastline. And many of you had the question, why? So 10 News anchor Candace Aviles, you went to USF researchers and asked them that exact question. You got some answers too.
You know, they did a really good job of putting all the pieces together because we knew a little bit of everything, right? But they finally kind of put it together all in one report. And here's the nuts and bolts of what they found. First, they confirmed that red tide originates offshore in this circled area. That's about 30 to 50 miles off the coast. So they say human pollution doesn't cause it, but may make it worse. So second, red tide is spread to the coast by ocean circulation. Third, red tide flourishes when there's less nutrients in the water, something that's determined by ocean circulation. So what made last year's bloom so epic? Besides ocean circulation making the water conditions good for bloom, they say the bloom formed on the heels of a strong 2017 red tide bloom that hadn't ended yet.
Another thing that happened in 2018 is that some of the red tide was carried to the Panhandle coast, and that was done by Tropical Storm Gordon.
They were all able to figure all of this out thanks to this robotic glider you're looking at, but USF only has one of these guys, and they say they need at least 4 of them to keep up with everything happening in the Gulf. But those guys aren't cheap. They cost $150,000 each plus $20,000 to operate for a month-long deployment, but nevertheless still important. Now, Bobby, I'm sure this is a question you got all the time. I heard it, I was asking it, what is red tide going to be like next year? But I asked researchers that, and they say they won't be able to tell until about mid-June.
And that's the gist of that story, is the research that they're doing, and the reason why they won't know until June is because that's when they go back out and they take more measurements.
Yep, exactly.
So what we had in 2018 was made worse because of what we had in 2017. So in June, they'll go back out, they'll take measurements, they'll say what's left over, because we know it normally happens anyways every year, but if you've got something left over and then it normally happens on top of that, then it gets worse. That's what we had last year. A lot of their research was about how it's transported. You remember this map? I know it's kind of tough to see. This is a trajectory. This is what the wind does to the top of the water. It blows the water in different directions. Starts right here, goes like this. The winds we're going to see tonight and tomorrow out of the south blow it up there. Then the next days they'll turn around to the north and the west, and they'll come back down. This is some of the research that they were doing to figure out exactly where red tide forms, which is really good to know. We know it's natural. And then we look at things like this and we know where it's going to go. So we're learning more and more each year about it, and hopefully we can learn some way to prevent it. That would be the ultimate goal.
Yeah, that's for sure. One of the animals most affected by red tide was snook. And Mote marine scientists say they've figured out that giving them probiotics while they are just babies will help increase their chances of survival.